Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Oline and I'm a knitter from Norway, and I am really bad at weaving in ends. Honestly, I am almost a bit ashamed of it because I am really bad at it, or said in another way, I'm really good at procrastinating and I just cannot make myself weave in ends. So today I thought I'd rope you guys in to kind of make me weave in ends. So I'm going to do this video. Hopefully it will make me weave in ends, and hopefully me starting to weave in these ends will help me finish them. And just to show my big problem, I can kind of show I have these pieces that doesn't even fit, and then I have this whole basket and I've stuffed as much as humanly possible in here. I have weaved in the ends on some projects during the last couple of months, but I have also projects that are as old as like almost a year in here that I haven't weaved in the ends on. And I must say I am the most bad at not weaving in ends in like spring and summer because my mind is just elsewhere. I still love to knit. I knit a lot throughout the whole year, but once like spring and summer and warmer temperatures hit, I cannot get myself to weave in these ends. So a lot of these projects are like newer ones since like March, at least I want to say, or even newer, but I have a lot to go through. But I thought I'd just start and then I can chat with you as I go, so I don't have to sit here alone and do something I really don't like. The first one up is the anchor sweater. I think I made this in the smallest size, or I think this maybe is the 3 to 6 month size. I made this in Sandnesgarn merino wool. I'm not quite sure of the color because I got this yarn at Sandnesgarn, their outlet store, so I didn't really it didn't have those banderoles on it that tells you the color code and everything, but it's kind of like mauve colored. What's nice about not weaving in ends though is that I get to kind of reminisce on all of my old projects once I actually sit down to do it. But since I don't weave in ends, once I actually sit down to do it, I have so much to do, so it never really turns out to be a good experience. I think it would be much better if I just did the ends as I finished projects, so I wouldn't have to like spend 2-3 hours weaving in all the ends at like the once my basket fills up too much. I think it would be much better to just do it bit by bit. I actually don't think this one is too bad because it has a lot of Italian bind off, and when I do Italian bind off I always weave in the end because I'm already using my needle, so that might help me a lot with this one. And I do Italian bind off on almost all of my projects, and my projects using 100% wool that's not been superwash or alpaca and like animal fiber. I always splice the ends together to make as few ends as possible for me to weave in, and I do all of that to kind of try to get myself to be better at weaving in ends immediately, but nothing has really helped. But hopefully me weaving in the ends today is going to make it easier for me to kind of start fresh and start weaving in the ends as I go. Today I'm also wearing my Ignite cardigan, finally able to wear that again. I've also noticed that it's not only the ends of my projects that gets neglected in the summer. I'm also way worse at washing my knits. In the winter we use a lot of wool. We live in Norway, so we use wool every day, like all different types of wool, so we wash wool really regularly, so there's always wool being washed, and that makes it a lot easier for me to keep on top of washing my knits as well, because I wash all my knits and everything in the washing machine, and I usually wash it together with our other wool clothes. So I know you're probably not supposed to do that, but that's what I do, and that's what makes it the easiest for me to actually wash all our knits and wool clothes. But now in the summer, since we don't really wear a lot of wool in the summer, I still wear a lot of my knits, but we don't really wear those regular wool clothes as well. We wash a lot less wool, and then I just don't wash my knits either, or at least it makes it a lot more. I have to like really go in for washing my knits, because we're not just washing wool in general. So this knit cardigan had to wait, I think, a couple of months until I finally had the time and the want to go and wash it. So that's nice that I finally, like, I'm trying to be better at washing my knits and weaving in the ends and everything, so that everything I knit actually can be worn. But it's not been as bad as this for quite some time, at least not weaving in ends. I've been better at. Some of these projects were even meant to be gifts for babies, and then I just did not want to weave in ends, and me not wanting to weave in ends kind of made it take too long, and now the babies have definitely outgrown these clothes. So I'm trying to get to a better place with how many projects I have to weave in ends for, because I feel like if I don't really have any projects waiting for me, it will make it easier to just weave in the ends once the project is done. But now that I have a whole basket full of knits that I need to weave in the ends for, it's a lot easier to just say no, it can just go with all of the other ones. So I'm trying to fix that now, and I don't really think it takes that long once I sit down and do it. I'm almost done with the first piece, and this definitely could have just been done in a couple of minutes right after finishing. But I'm just so, when I'm knitting, I'm just so wrapped up in the knitting, and while I do the finishing knitting things on each piece, I'm just thinking about what I can cast on next, and I get so wrapped up in that I totally forget about weaving in ends actually being a part of the project. In my mind, I just feel like only the knitting is really part of the project, and once I'm done knitting, I feel like I'm done with the project. Like blocking and weaving in ends don't really count. So I think I have to kind of shift that mindset to make it easier for myself to stay on top of it. But that is the first piece finished. And then we can move into another anchor sweater. This time, this one is in the size 3 to 4 months. But this one, I think I have less ends to weave in, because this is knit using 100% wool, or it's not 100% wool, but it's not superwash, and it's this animal fiber. It's knit using Drops Lima, which I think is 65% wool and 35% alpaca. So on this one I have spliced the ends, so I think I might only have this like top one to do for the cast on, because I have woven in the ends where I did Italian bind off. So we'll just have a little look on the inside. Oh, I probably have the ends under the arms to do as well, but a lot of my projects are like this. I only have like 3 ends to weave in, and it still gets left for so long. And when I do that with multiple projects, it just gets harder and harder and harder to actually start. But for this one, it isn't actually that bad, because I finished this one just last week. And part of why I am finally getting to do this and weave in all of these ends is that my son's birthday is coming up in just, I think it's under a week now, until his birthday, and I have multiple of his knits that I am hoping to give him for his birthday in this basket that have been finished for some time, but I have not gotten around to weaving in the ends, and some of them needs buttons and everything like that. So that is kind of the extra motivation I needed to finally get started, because I he is growing, and if I want him to actually get use out of his sweaters, they have to be finished now that he is growing into that size I have made for him. So I am going to finish weaving in the ends for his sweaters, and hopefully I'll get to wash and block them and do buttons before his birthday, and then that will be his birthday gift for me. It's not the most exciting, but also he really loves his knits and has been involved in the process of picking out the colors and the patterns and knitting them up, so hopefully he will love them, and I also hopefully will have the time to make him a little knit plushie, so it's not only getting clothes, but first off I have to prioritize actually finishing the things I've already made him, because I don't want to have spent all of this time knitting only for it not to get used. And I think that's like my biggest problem with me just knitting and not doing any of the finishing details. The finishing details are also quite important if I want the final piece to actually get used. And while knitting for me is my hobby and I would do it no matter what, I also knit like functional clothes because I actually want them to get used, and knitting and gift giving is like my love language, so I really want them to be used and to be able to give them away, but I just need to remember that the process does not really end once I've cast on. It doesn't end until I've actually finished all parts of it. I also had just a little bit to weave in here on the ribbing, but then this will be done too, and then I'll already have woven in the ends on 2 projects, so this is going by faster than I imagined, and it's just making me feel more ashamed, honestly, that I haven't done this before, but at least I am sitting down and doing it now, and hopefully you guys find this little chat with me entertaining. I hope it's not too boring. I'm just rambling on, talking about whatever comes to mind, just to kind of keep myself occupied with something else while weaving in these ends. I have tried watching TV or something else. Now this is finished too, so 2 anchor sweaters done. I have tried to watch TV or something else while weaving in ends to keep myself occupied, but my big problem is that that doesn't really keep me occupied enough, and I very easily reach for my phone and then get distracted and then forget kind of what I am doing, and then that whole session is just for nothing. But now I film with my phone, so that's not really an opportunity for me to do, and since I have to do the talking, it keeps me way more engaged than just watching TV. So far this is working out better for me than just watching TV, but I don't know what will be the best idea going forwards, because I don't think I can sit down and talk to you guys every time I have to weave in ends, but maybe if I weave in ends as I go and don't have like this big pile of ends to weave in, it will be easier to do it without a lot of other things going on. Right now I am weaving in the ends on the Bendix kragegenser. I don't think that has an English translation, but it is by Understreck, and this was my second time making this. I'll just flip it again so you can see. It is a really cute sweater. I made it. It was my son's Christmas sweater the year he turned 2, I think, or the year he, or like in 2022 this was his Christmas sweater, and he's almost growing out of that one, so I've made him a new one. This is in the size 3 years, and it has this amazing like folded collar, and you're supposed to have buttons here. and I think I knit this in Sandnesgarn Tynn Merino. The bad side with that though is that this is knit in superwash yarn, which means more ends for me to weave in, but it's going to be a really nice soft sweater. This is also a sweater that has been waiting for my attention and to weave in ends for so long. I think I finished it like early February maybe, and it still is laying here waiting. And the thing about this one is that it's not enough for me to just weave in the ends. I also have to find buttons and to finish that up, so hopefully I'll do that after this instead of just procrastinating that as well, because that will kind of feel very like time wasted then, because it's not going to be finished after this. It does need buttons to be finished, and then it also needs a block because this does not have ribbing. I feel like ribbed sweaters are nice to block, but I don't need it as much. But this one has folded hems, and I love the look of that. It looks really pretty and really classic, and this sweater is more for like formal occasions and Christmas parties and stuff like that. At least that's the way I'm imagining this getting used. And then I really like folded hems for that, but folded hems definitely needs to be blocked before they're really nice to use, because before blocking they tend to roll up a lot, and I don't like that. I don't like when edges roll up, so can't wait to like finish that on this and get a functional sweater. The sweater we have from before that's like this is also one of my son's favorite sweater. He thinks it's really comfortable and he wears it a lot, so I am excited to be able to like replace it. Hopefully he'll enjoy this one as much, even though it's a bit of a different yarn and a bit of a different color. But hopefully he will enjoy this one too. Yeah, it's just really fun to go back and kind of revisit these projects, because now as I'm working on them I can like remember what I was doing when I was knitting on these. I remember that when I was doing the finishing touches on this I was visiting my friend, and I remember trying to sew down the edges, I think on the body, while we were watching a movie, and it was dark, and I think I sewed it down wrong a few times before I got it right. And that's kind of the only like upside to me being so bad at weaving in ends, is that I get to revisit my projects way later while they're still a work in progress. Of course, most of my projects I also get to revisit when wearing them, but it's different to visit them while they're still a work in progress, because then I think more about the progress of making them than I do when they're all finished. Then I just think about more all of the times we've been able to wear them. But yeah, it's really nice to be able to sit down and revisit all of these projects, but even though that's nice, I don't think this is a practice I want to continue doing, because it is just a lot better to finish things completely. What's this? Some of the ends are hard to tell if have been woven in or if they're not, so I'm just going to weave them in a bit extra in case they have not been woven in. But I thought while I sat here and chat with you, even though I've already been chatting for quite some time, I hope I'm not boring you, but I thought I could also share maybe some of my unpopular knitting opinions. I don't know if they are unpopular, and if they are, it's just opinions. Everyone's entitled to have their own, but I have a lot of opinions at least. And my first opinion is, no, these are woven in, I'm going to just cut them. my first opinion, of course, is that I hate weaving in ends. I hate everything with knitting that has to do with a needle. I hate, except for Italian bind off, because that I really like, but I hated that when I started too. But now I have come to really appreciate Italian bind off. But everything else with knitting that involves a needle, I hate it. Seaming is the worst. If a project asks for seaming, I'm going to bend my backwards, and I'm going to do everything in my power to figure out another way to knit that pattern as to where I don't have to do seaming. Part of it is because I am bad at seaming. I don't really do it a lot because I try to avoid it, and then also for me it just takes a lot longer, and the possibility of me procrastinating really grows. If I have to knit, that's going to get done, but everything that's not knitting with the knitting process has a high likelihood of being procrastinated. So when I make things, I try to help myself by making as much of the process be knitting as possible, and then hopefully just a few ends to weave in, and maybe buttons if I'm doing a cardigan or something. But if there's buttons involved, I'm probably going to procrastinate. But yeah, everything involving a needle I don't like, except the Italian bind off. But that also, I do that immediately, so I think that's probably why it's not that bad. But that's my first opinion, but I don't think that's an unpopular opinion, probably. And then another opinion that I have is that I don't really mind purling. It's not my favorite because stockinette is my favorite, because that's so mindless and I can just do it without thinking. But purling is not far off. I have done purling so much, and it's kind of as mindless as knitting almost. I move my fingers a tiny bit more when purling, so it's a bit easier for me to like drop stitches or only knit like half of the yarn if I don't look down every once in a while with purling than with knitting. Knitting is not that big of a movement with my hands, so it's much easier to kind of hit the mark every time. But purling, I move my fingers a lot more, so that makes it a bit harder, but I still like it. It doesn't take me much longer to do than knitting. I just have to be a bit more involved with my knitting and look at it a bit more and focus a bit more. But I don't really mind purling, and knitting back and forth is like fine. A couple of years ago I didn't like it as much, but now I have done purling so much, and I've made quite a few cardigans and drop shoulder sweaters where you start out knitting back and forth, so now I really don't mind it at all. Now this one is finished as well. I think I'm making good progress. Of course you can barely see a dent in this. This is still overfilled, but at least I have done a bit, so I don't think that's too bad. 3 pieces down. Another opinion that I have that might be unpopular or not is about the sweater curse. The sweater curse is, I think you're not supposed to knit anything for your significant other until you're married or something, I think maybe. I don't really believe in that. I make sweaters and knit things for everyone I care about. As I said, knitting things and giving them away is like my love language, so I'm going to knit people things no matter what. I knit my friends things, I knit my family things. I've knit my fiance multiple things. I think the first thing I knit him was like a month after we got together. I just love knitting, and I think I've knit him like 4 sweaters now, and we're still together. This that I'm weaving in the ends on now is the Sunday sweater Junior. I made this in Drops Alpaca and Kid Silk Erle. Also a pattern by petiteknit. This is another gift knit I'm doing. It's for my friend's son, just because I wanted to knit them something. First I knit my friend a sweater, just because I thought she'd like the colors, and then I had more yarn, so I think I'm going to make both her son's sweaters, and that's kind of what I mean about the sweater curse as well. I'm not going to let anything stop me knitting for the people I care about. I'm going to knit as much as I want, and if something happens, if they don't appreciate what I make for them, I might not make anything for them again. But I don't think a sweater is really what makes or breaks a relationship. I think maybe if they break up with you after you knit them a sweater, they really weren't the person meant for you anyways. And I'm not going to let fear of that hold me back from knitting for the people I care about. So that's kind of my opinion on the sweater curse. Another opinion I have that might be a bit of a hot take is that I don't do gauge swatches. I have done a few, but those have mainly been because I've been very eager to do a project but not really had the time to properly cast it on. So I've done a gauge swatch just to kind of temper my excitement a bit, or when doing a test knit or like something really important, I'll do maybe a gauge swatch, but other than that I can't stand gauge swatches. I honestly feel, and have done, I would rather frog a whole project than do a gauge swatch, because there's something about it I just really don't like. When I knit something, I just want to dive straight in, have the like excitement of casting something on for the first time, doing the patterning for the first time, everything for the first time. I want that. I don't really want to like make gauge swatches, everything. I don't really want to do that, so I don't. So that's maybe an unpopular opinion. Also, not maybe an unpopular opinion, I change yarns for everything I knit. It's very, very rare that I knit a pattern in the yarn that's recommended by the pattern, both because I want to use what's in my stash, and I usually don't have that type of yarn in my stash, and because usually a yarn that's recommended in a pattern is just like ridiculously expensive, and I don't have that kind of money. This was a horrible sweater to weave in ends on. It's so hairy and I get all the hair in my mouth. This was not great, but that was all I had the time to do today before my son got back. He's right here now and just trying to have the patience for this last thing, but I totally finished 3 things and I got halfway through this one. This was horrible. Weaving in the ends for Air and Kid Silk together was not great. I got so much hair in my throat and nose and everything, but I made some progress. I have now started. Hopefully that will make it easier to keep going. I hope this video was enjoyable for you as well, and not just for me. A good thing to do something. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment. That means the world to me. And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe. Bye!